Captain Jenna Cross stood on the bridge of the starship Valiant, her emerald eyes fixed on the viewscreen displaying the massive alien fleet that had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Sleek, crystalline vessels that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, their surfaces reflecting starlight like liquid mercury. "How many ships are we looking at?" Jenna asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant David Storm, her tactical officer, ran his hands through his dark hair as he studied the readings. "Over 300 vessels, Captain. Their technology readings are off the charts. We've never seen energy signatures like these." His brown eyes met hers briefly, filled with concern and something deeper, an emotion he'd kept hidden for months. The communications console chirped, and Ensign Riley looked up nervously. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's beautiful, like music mixed with light." "Put it through," Jenna commanded, straightening her uniform jacket. The bridge fell silent as alien harmonics filled the air, followed by a voice that seemed to resonate from another dimension entirely. "People of Earth." The voice spoke in perfect English, though it carried undertones that made the crew's hearts. "Sharasanna, I'm Admiral Caney Vortex of the Ethereal Coalition. Your species has expanded beyond your permitted boundaries. You have 48 hours to surrender your military capabilities and submit to Coalition governance, or face complete annihilation." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Jenna felt her pulse quicken, not just from fear, but from something in that voice that had stirred something deep within her. "Captain," David said softly, stepping closer to her, "Earth Command is requesting immediate conference. What are your orders?" Jenna turned to face her crew, her auburn hair catching the bridge lights. "We respond as we always have when faced with bullies. We stand our ground. But first, I want to know what we're dealing with. Open a channel." "Channel open, Captain." Jenna took a deep breath, aware that her next words could determine humanity's fate. "Admiral Caney Vortex, this is Captain Jenna Cross of the Earth starship Valiant. Humanity doesn't respond well to ultimatums. Perhaps we should discuss this face-to-face, if you have the courage to meet with a primitive human." The response came quickly, and this time the voice carried a hint of amusement. "Captain Cross, your reputation for boldness precedes you. Very well. I will transport to your vessel in 1 hour. Prepare a meeting chamber." David stepped forward, his protective instincts flaring. "Captain, that's extremely dangerous. We don't know anything about their abilities." Jenna placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles. "It's a risk we have to take, David. Sometimes diplomacy requires courage." She noticed how his eyes lingered on her touch, the way his breathing changed slightly when she was near. An hour later, Jenna stood in the main conference room, having changed into her dress uniform. The room had been cleared except for essential security personnel, including David, who insisted on being present despite her protests. The air shimmered, and suddenly he was there. Admiral Caney Vortex was tall, over 6.5 feet, with skin that seemed to contain galaxies shifting between deep purple and silver. His eyes were the color of distant nebulae, ancient and knowing, and his hair moved as if underwater, defying gravity. He wore robes that seemed woven from starlight itself, and when he moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around him. But it was his presence that took Jenna's breath away. Power radiated from him like heat from a star, and when their eyes met, she felt something electric pass between them, a recognition that transcended species. "Captain Cross," Caney said, his voice now carrying subtle harmonics that made her skin tingle. "You are not what I expected." "Neither are you," Jenna replied, struggling to maintain her professional composure. "Though I'm not sure what I expected from someone threatening to destroy my entire species." Caney smiled, an expression that transformed his alien features into something dangerously attractive. "Your species fascinates me. In all my centuries, I have never encountered beings so determined to resist overwhelming odds." David shifted uncomfortably beside her, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. "Captain, perhaps we should focus on the matter at hand." Kaney's gaze moved to David and something flickered in those nebula eyes. Recognition of a rival, perhaps. Your loyal officer is wise. Very well. Let us discuss terms. There are no terms, Jenna said firmly, stepping closer to the alien admiral. Humanity will not surrender. We've fought for every inch of progress we've made, and we won't stop now. Even against impossible odds? Kaney asked, moving closer as well. They were now only a few feet apart, and Jenna could smell something, like ozone and starlight emanating from him. Especially against impossible odds, she replied, her green eyes blazing with determination. That's what makes us human. For a long moment, they stared at each other, the tension in the room palpable. David's jaw clenched as he watched the maw exchange, recognizing something he didn't like in the way the alien looked at his captain. You would sacrifice your entire species for pride? Kaney asked, but his tone had shifted, becoming almost gentle. I would sacrifice everything for freedom, Jenna answered. Wouldn't you? Something changed in Kane's expression. Surprise, respect, and something that looked dangerously like admiration. You remind me of someone I once knew, someone who also refused to surrender no matter the cost. What happened to them? Jenna asked, her voice softer now. They changed the galaxy, Kaney replied, his eyes never leaving hers. Perhaps there is another way to resolve this. David stepped forward, unable to contain himself any longer. Captain, with respect, this could be a trap. We can't trust him. Jenna looked at her tactical officer, seeing the concern in his eyes and the jealousy he was trying to hide. I know, David, but sometimes you have to take risks to find solutions. Kaney watched this exchange with interest, noting the undercurrents between the two humans. Your officer cares for you deeply. Love makes humans unpredictable, dangerous. Love makes us strong, Jenna corrected, though she felt heat rise in her cheeks at the alien's perceptiveness. Does it? Kaney mused, circling her slowly. Or, does it make you vulnerable? What would you do if I threatened him? His gaze moved to David, who tensed immediately. You would learn why humans are feared across the galaxy, Jenna said coldly, but Kaney only smiled. Peace, Captain. I merely seek to understand your species. Your emotions are intriguing. The meeting continued for another hour, with neither side yielding ground, but Jenna found herself drawn to the alien admiral's intelligence and unexpected moments of vulnerability. When he spoke of his own species' long history, she heard echoes of loss and loneliness that resonated with her own experiences commanding in the dark between stars. As the meeting concluded, Kaney paused at the transport coordinates. Captain Cross, you have given me much to consider. Perhaps we might continue this discussion privately? David's face darkened, but Jenna nodded slowly. Perhaps we might, Admiral. But know this, humanity's answer remains the same. We will not surrender. I would be disappointed if you did, Kaney replied, and as he shimmered out of existence, Jenna could have sworn she saw him smile. As soon as the alien was gone, David exploded. Captain, you can't seriously be considering meeting with him alone. This is exactly what they want, to divide us, to make us doubt ourselves. Jenna turned to face him, seeing the pain and fear in his eyes. David, I need you to trust me. I know what I'm doing. Do you? He asked desperately. Because from where I stood, it looked like you were falling under his spell. These aliens, they could have mental powers, ways of influencing us that we don't understand. She moved closer to him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Is that what you think happened? That I'm somehow compromised? David's resolve wavered as she stood so near, her familiar perfume mixing with the lingering scent of starlight from their alien visitor. I think you're the strongest person I know, Jenna. But I also think you're human, and that means you can be vulnerable too. For a moment, she saw past his professional mask to the man beneath, the one who had served with her for 3 years, who anticipated her needs in battle, who looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching with such longing it made her heart ache. David, she began, But the moment was broken by the ship's intercom. "Captain to the bridge. Priority transmission from Earth Command." As they walked to the bridge together, neither spoke of what had passed between them, or of the way the alien, Admiral, had looked at her, or of the strange pull she had felt toward those nebula eyes. But the air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities, while somewhere in the crystalline depths of the ethereal fleet, Admiral Caney Vortex stared out at the stars and wondered what it meant to feel something he hadn't experienced in centuries, the stirring of a heart he had thought long dead. The game between species had begun, but it was no longer just about conquest. Something far more dangerous had entered the equation, something that could either save both civilizations or destroy them utterly. Love had always been humanity's greatest strength and its most terrible weakness, and now it would be tested across the vast darkness between stars. 3 days had passed since the first meeting, and the tension between the human and ethereal fleets had only intensified. Both sides maintained their positions, weapons powered but not aimed, like two predators circling each other in the cosmic dark. But beneath the surface of military protocol, something far more dangerous was brewing. Captain Jenna Cross found herself unable to concentrate on tactical reports as she stood in her private quarters, staring out at the alien fleet through her viewport. The crystalline ships pulsed with soft light, and she wondered if Admiral Caney Vortex was looking back at her ship at this very moment. Her door chimed, and she turned to see David Storm entering with the latest intelligence briefings. His uniform was impeccable as always, but she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened when he looked at her. "Earth Command is growing impatient," David said, setting the datapad on her desk. "They want to know why we haven't engaged the enemy yet." "Because sometimes the best strategy is patience," Jenna replied, though she knew that wasn't the whole truth. The real reason was that every time she thought about ordering an attack, she saw those nebula eyes in her mind. David moved closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Jenna, what's really going on? You've been different since that meeting, distracted. It's not like you." She turned away from the viewport to face him fully, seeing the concern and something deeper in his brown eyes. "I'm trying to find a solution that doesn't end with billions dead on both sides." "By meeting with him again?" David's voice carried an edge she'd never heard before. "Because that's what you're planning, isn't it? I can see it in your eyes." Before she could answer, her private communications console activated with an encrypted signal. The same harmonics from before filled the room, but softer now, more intimate. "Captain Cross," came Caney's voice, and Jenna felt her pulse quicken, involuntarily. "I believe we have unfinished business to discuss. Might I suggest a more private venue?" David stepped forward, his hand moving to cut the transmission, but Jenna caught his wrist. The contact sent electricity through both of them, and for a moment they stood frozen, hands touching, eyes locked. "I'll handle this," she said softly, and reluctantly he pulled away. "Captain," Caney's voice continued, "there is a small moon in the 7th orbit of your system, uninhabited but with a breathable atmosphere. Perhaps neutral ground would be more appropriate for our next conversation." Jenna activated the transmitter. "When?" "1 hour. Come alone." The transmission ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. David ran his hands through his hair. A gesture she'd learned meant he was struggling with strong emotions. "This is insanity, Jenna. Meeting him alone on some remote moon, it's obviously a trap." "Maybe," she admitted, moving to her closet to select appropriate gear. "But it might also be our only chance to prevent a war. Or it might be his chance. To capture Earth's most accomplished starship captain," David countered, watching her with growing desperation. "You mean too much to the fleet to risk yourself like this?" She paused in her preparations, hearing what he couldn't quite say. "David, I know," he said quickly, turning away. "I know you don't see me that way. I've accepted it, but I can't accept losing you to some alien who might be manipulating your emotions for strategic advantage." The pain in his voice made her chest tighten. She moved to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You're not losing me, and you mean more to me than you know. But I have to do this." He turned back to her, and she saw the moment he almost said the words that had been building between them for months. Instead, he straightened into military posture. "Then I'm coming with you." "No," she said firmly. "This has to be just me. But David, if something happens to me, you'll take care of the crew?" "Nothing's going to happen to you," he said fiercely. "I won't let it." An hour later, Jenna piloted a small shuttle toward the designated moon, her heart racing with anticipation and fear in equal measure. The moon's surface was covered in crystalline formations that caught and reflected light in impossible ways, creating a landscape that looked like frozen music. She landed near a grove of what looked like crystal trees, their branches chiming softly in the alien wind. As she stepped out of her shuttle, she saw another craft nearby, sleek and organic, like a teardrop made of liquid starlight. Caney emerged from the alien vessel, and Jenna's breath caught. Without his formal robes, dressed in simpler garments that clung to his tall frame, he looked less like an intimidating admiral and more like a man. His galaxy skin seemed to glow in the moon's strange light, and when he smiled at her approach, she felt her carefully maintained professional distance begin to crumble. "You came," he said, and there was something almost vulnerable in his voice. "I said I would," she replied, stopping a few feet away from him. "Though I'm beginning to question my judgment." "Are you?" he asked, moving closer. "I find myself questioning many things lately. My orders, my duty, my understanding of what it means to be alive." They walked together through the crystal grove, the chiming branches creating an otherworldly symphony around them. Jenna found herself stealing glances at his profile, noting the way starlight seemed to dance beneath his skin. "Why did you really ask me here?" she said finally. Caney stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "Because in 3 centuries of existence, I have never met anyone who challenged me the way you do. Your species, your defiance, your..." He paused, searching for words. "Your fire. It awakens something in me I thought had died long ago." "And what's that?" she whispered, though she feared she already knew the answer. "Hope," he said simply. "Desire. The feeling that perhaps there is more to existence than duty and conquest." Jenna felt herself drawn toward him like gravity, but forced herself to step back. "You're asking me to betray my own species?" "No," Caney said, reaching out to gently touch her face. His skin was warm, tingling with energy that made her nerves sing. "I'm asking you to help me find another way. Your people and mine. We could be allies instead of enemies. But it would require trust. Trust between enemies," she said, but didn't pull away from his touch. "Trust between souls," he corrected, and leaned down to kiss her. The moment their lips met, Jenna felt the universe shift around them. His kiss was like touching a star, warm, electric, overwhelming in its intensity. She could taste starlight and possibility, feel the cosmic forces that flowed through his alien physiology. Her hands found their way to his chest, feeling the strange rhythm of his dual hearts beneath her palms. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Jenna stared up at him, seeing her own wonder reflected in his nebula eyes. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The best things usually are," he replied, pulling her closer. "Jenna. May I call you Jenna?" She nodded, lost in the feeling of being held by someone who could crack planets but touched her like she was made of precious crystal. "Jenna," he said again, savoring her name. "In my culture, when 2 souls recognize each other across the darkness, it is considered a gift from the cosmic forces themselves, rare beyond measure." "In my culture," she said, her hands sliding up to his shoulders, "this would be called treason." "Then perhaps," he murmured against her ear, "we should create our own culture, one where love transcends politics and species." They kissed again, deeper this time, and Jenna felt herself falling into something that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. His hands traced the curve of her spine, and she marveled at how perfectly she seemed to fit against his alien frame. When they separated again, reality came crashing back. "Caney," she said, using his name for the first time. "What happens now? Our fleets are still facing each other, ready for war. Now," he said, "we find a way to convince both our peoples that there is a better path. But Jenna, you must know, there are those among my people who will see any hesitation as weakness. My advisor, Zara Nightwhisper, already suspects that I am compromised. And on my ship," Jenna admitted, "my tactical officer David Storm thinks I'm being manipulated. He's not wrong to be concerned." Caney's expression darkened slightly. "He cares for you deeply. I could see it in the way he looked at you, at me. He sees me as a threat to more than just your species." "David is a good man," Jenna said carefully. "He's been my closest friend and confidant for years." "But not your lover," Caney said, and it wasn't quite a question. "No," she admitted, "though perhaps he hoped, and perhaps I was too focused on my career to notice." She looked up at him, this alien who had somehow reached past all her defenses. "You're asking me to choose between loyalty and love." "I'm asking you to choose a future where you don't have to choose," he replied. "Where humans and ethereals can coexist, can learn from each other, can love each other," she finished. "Yes," he said simply. "Is that so impossible to imagine?" Before she could answer, both their communication devices activated simultaneously with urgent signals. Jenna's was David's voice, tight with panic. "Captain, we've got incoming ships, not ethereal, something else. Unknown design, massive energy signatures. They're heading straight for both fleets." Caney's device carried a similar message from his own people, but in the harmonic language of the ethereals. His face went pale beneath his galaxy skin. "It seems," he said grimly, "that our private concerns are about to become irrelevant. The Devourers have found us." "The Devourers?" Jenna asked, but even as she spoke, she was already moving toward her shuttle. "An ancient enemy," Caney explained, keeping pace with her. "They consume entire civilizations, turning planets into feeding grounds. If they're here, then both our species are in immediate danger." As they reached their ships, Jenna turned back to him. "What does this mean for us?" "It means," Caney said, his expression now showing the full weight of his centuries, "that we must convince our peoples to fight together, or watch both civilizations die. And Jenna, it means that whatever is growing between us will have to wait. Or it means," she said, starting up her shuttle's engines, "that we're about to find out just how strong love can be when everything else falls apart." As they flew back toward their respective fleets, both carried the memory of crystal chimes and impossible kisses, while in the darkness between stars, something ancient and hungry turned its attention toward the small blue world that had dared to love across the void. The view screen on the Valiant's bridge showed a sight that chilled the blood of every human who witnessed it. Massive black ships emerged from the void like hungry shadows, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. They moved with predatory grace, each vessel easily 3 times the size of Earth's largest dreadnoughts. Captain Jenna Cross stood at the center of the bridge, her mind racing as she processed the tactical data streaming across her displays. Beside her, Lieutenant David Storm worked frantically at his console, his earlier jealousy forgotten in the face of existential threat. "Captain," David reported, his voice tight with controlled fear, "I'm reading 47 Devourer vessels. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. And, Captain, they're not slowing down." Before Jenna could respond, her communications console activated with Caney's harmonics. This time, however, his usual composed demeanor was gone, replaced by urgency that transcended species barriers. "Jenna," he said, using her first name openly for the first time in front of both crews. "My fleet is moving to intercept, but we cannot face them alone. The Devourers destroyed my homeworld 2 centuries ago. They leave nothing behind but empty space." The bridge crew exchanged glances at their captain's first name being used so intimately by the alien admiral, but Jenna ignored their reactions. "What do you need from us?" "Everything," Caney replied without hesitation. "Our weapons are more Powerful, but your ships are faster, more maneuverable. If we coordinate our attacks— Captain, David interrupted, his duty overriding personal feelings. Earth Command hasn't authorized joint operations with hostile forces. Jenna looked at her tactical officer, seeing the man who had stood by her side through countless battles, who had loved her silently and faithfully. David, sometimes command decisions have to be made in the field. Are you with me? David met her eyes, and in that moment she saw him make his own choice between jealousy and duty, between personal pain and the greater good. Always, Captain. What are your orders? Open a channel to all human vessels, she commanded. This is Captain Cross of the Valiant. We are entering into emergency alliance with the Ethereal Coalition to face a common enemy. All ships will coordinate with Ethereal. Fleet movements. Anyone who has a problem with that can file a complaint after we save humanity. The response was immediate. Ship after ship acknowledged the order, and Jenna felt a surge of pride in her species. When faced with extinction, humans didn't hesitate to work with former enemies. On the ethereal flagship, Admiral Caney stood in his crystalline command chamber, watching human ships move into formation alongside his own vessels. Beside him, his advisor Zara Night Whisper observed with barely concealed disapproval. Admiral, Zara said, her voice carrying harmonics of concern and something darker. This alliance with the humans may be premature. How do we know they won't betray us once the immediate threat is past? Caney turned to his oldest friend and advisor, seeing the jealousy she tried to hide behind military protocol. Because, dear Zara, love creates bonds stronger than fear. And what I feel for their captain, what she feels for me, it will ensure cooperation. Zara's ethereal features twisted, with pain. Love, Admiral, with an alien? Have you forgotten your duty to our people? Have you forgotten us? Caney moved closer to her, gently touching her face with the same tenderness he had shown Jenna. Sweet Zara, you have been my closest companion for decades. But what I feel for you is the love of family, of deep friendship. What I feel for Jenna Cross burns like a newborn star. Can you understand the difference? Tears that looked like liquid starlight fell from Zara's eyes. I understand that you are lost to me forever. Not lost, Caney said gently. Changed, as you too might change if you open your heart to new possibilities. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent tactical alerts. The Devourer ships had begun their attack, launching weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. The first salvo destroyed an ethereal cruiser completely, leaving not even debris behind. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Jenna's voice crackled across the joint. Communications network. Form up in mixed squadrons. Ethereal shields, human speed. Let's show these bastards what cooperation looks like. The battle that followed was unlike anything either species had ever experienced. Human ships darted between massive Devourer vessels, like angry wasps, their weapons targeting weak points identified by ethereal sensors. Meanwhile, ethereal dreadnoughts provided covering fire with energy beams that could pierce dimensions. On the Valiant's bridge, David coordinated with ethereal tactical officers through hastily established translation protocols. Despite his personal feelings about Caney, he found himself impressed by the aliens' tactical precision and their willingness to shield human vessels with their own. Captain, he reported, the ethereals are taking heavy losses protecting our flanks. Their admiral is putting his own ship directly into the line of fire. Jenna's heart clenched as she watched Caney's flagship absorb devastating blows meant for smaller human vessels. All ships, covering formation around the ethereal flagship, we protect each other now. The tide of battle shifted as the unlikely alliance found its rhythm. Human creativity combined with ethereal power proved devastating to the Devourers, who had expected to face divided, frightened enemies. Instead, they encountered unified resistance that grew stronger with each passing moment. But the cost was terrible. Ships from both fleets fell to the Devourers' reality-warping weapons, and with each loss the survivors fought harder, their bond forged in shared sacrifice. In the midst of the chaos, Jenna made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. David, take the con. I'm transferring to the ethereal flagship. Captain, that's suicide. David protested, but she was already moving. It's strategy, she corrected. Caney and I can coordinate better face to face. And David, if I don't make it back, you're the finest officer I've ever served with. The crew will need you. As she prepared to transport across the void of space, David caught her arm. Jenna, I need you to know, I understand, what you feel for him. It's not just alien influence. I can see it in your eyes, the same fire that made me fall in love with you in the first place. She squeezed his hand gently. Thank you for understanding. And David, there's someone on the ethereal ship who might surprise you. Zara Nightwhisper. She's brilliant, loyal, and I think she might appreciate a human who values those qualities. Despite everything, David managed a small smile. Is that an order, Captain? It's a suggestion from a friend, she replied. And then she was gone, transported through space in a cascade of energy. Jenna materialized on the ethereal flagship's bridge in a shimmer of light, and immediately felt the difference in atmosphere. The air itself seemed to hum with power, and the crystalline surfaces reflected her image into infinity. But all of that faded when she saw Caney, wounded, but still commanding, his galaxy skin bleeding silver light. You came, he said, wonder in his voice despite the battle raging around them. I told you, she replied, moving to his side. Love makes us strong. Now let's finish this. Working together, they coordinated the final assault. Jenna's tactical instincts combined with Caney's understanding of devourer weaknesses proved unstoppable. Human ships used their speed to deliver ethereal quantum torpedoes directly into the hearts of enemy vessels, while ethereal dreadnoughts provided the massive firepower needed to exploit the breaches. The last devourer ship fell in a cascade of imploding space-time, its death scream echoing across dimensions. In the sudden silence that followed, two fleets that had been enemies hours before now floated side by side, victorious and forever changed. On the Valiant, David found himself working alongside Zara Nightwhisper to coordinate damage reports. The ethereal advisor was everything Jenna had suggested, intelligent, dedicated, and possessed of a dry humor that translated surprisingly well across species barriers. Your captain, Zara said as they worked, she is remarkable. I understand now why Admiral Kane was so affected by her. She has that effect on people, David agreed. Though I'm beginning to think that maybe there are other remarkable beings in the universe worth getting to know. Zara looked at him with new interest, noting the strength in his features, the loyalty in his eyes. Perhaps there are, Lieutenant Storm. Perhaps there are. Meanwhile, on the ethereal flagship, Jenna and Caney stood together watching the mixed fleets begin rescue operations. Human and ethereal crews worked side by side, saving lives without regard for species. This changes everything, Jenna said softly. Everything, Caney agreed, pulling her close. No more ultimatums, no more threats. Our peoples have bled together, fought together. They've seen that love and cooperation are stronger than fear and conquest. Jenna looked up at him, this alien who had become the center of her universe in such a short time. And us? What happens to us? Caney smiled, his nebula, eyes reflecting the stars beyond. We become the bridge between worlds, the proof that different species can not only coexist but thrive together. We become the foundation of something new. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and around them the crystalline bridge chimed in harmonious approval. Through the viewports they could see human and ethereal ships flying in perfect formation, no longer enemies but allies forged in the crucible of shared purpose. When they finally separated, Jenna touched the silver blood on his cheek where he'd been wounded. I love you, she said simply. I don't care that you're alien. I don't care what Earth Command says. I don't care about regulations or protocols. I love you. And I love you, he replied, his voice carrying harmonics of joy that resonated through the ship's structure. In all my centuries across all the stars I have seen, you are the greatest discovery I have ever made. As rescue operations continued around them, As two species began the long process of building trust and friendship, as David Storm and Zara, Night Whisper discovered their own unexpected connection in the shadows of greater love. Jenna Cross and Caney Vortex stood together at the beginning of a new age. The galaxy had expected war between humans and ethereals. Instead, they got something far more powerful: love that transcended species, cooperation that multiplied strength, and proof that the universe's greatest force wasn't destruction, but the courage to care for someone different from yourself. In the months that followed, the Alliance would face challenges, opposition from both species, and the hard work of building understanding across the void. But it would endure, because it was founded not on fear or necessity, but on the simple truth that love, once kindled between kindred spirits, could burn bright enough to light the way for entire civilizations. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all: the refusal to accept that differences meant enemies, the determination to find connection across any distance, and the courage to believe that love really could conquer all, even the dark spaces between stars.